The 13th Rule Part 1. October 1st, 2024. The day I moved into Loft 313, the air over Echo Park smelled like asphalt and roses. The building stood like an old bruise on the corner of Sunset and Douglas, a brick skeleton of what used to be a church dormitory, now repurposed into artist lofts. The ad said $1,400 a month, utilities included, downtown view. Too good to be true. I signed the lease without asking questions. Miguel Alvarez, the landlord, was waiting with a clipboard and a tired smile. His accent was faint, somewhere between Mexico City and nowhere at all. He handed me a brass key and an envelope that looked older than the building itself. Inside, a single yellowed sheet of paper read, "The 13 Rules," he said. "Read them carefully. Follow them exactly." I laughed. "What is this, a cult?" He didn't laugh back. "It's maintenance," he said quietly. "The building-like structure." He left before I could ask what that meant. The loft was huge, high ceilings, vintage beams, a cracked mirror in the hall, and windows that looked out over the reservoir. The sun was falling behind the skyline when I set my boxes down and noticed the smell. Not mildew or dust, but roses. Burned roses. Sweet and scorched at the same time. I unfolded the rules. 1. Never speak to the woman in the red dress before sunset. Pretend you don't see her. 2. The window facing Douglas Street must remain open from 3 a.m. to 3:17 a.m. daily. 3. If you hear knocking in patterns of 3, wait until the fourth set stops before answering. 4. Cover all mirrors after midnight. Uncover them after 6 a.m. 5. Burn a candle in the kitchen every Sunday. White wax only. 6. Do not remove any nails or hooks from the walls. 7. Keep the main door locked, even when you're home. 8. If the lights flicker, say your full name aloud until it stops. 9. Do not use the elevator after 11 p.m. 10. If you smell roses after midnight, do not move. Wait until the scent fades. 11. The floorboards under the hallway vent must stay untouched. 12. Salt the threshold on the first of each month. 13. Do not destroy this list. Typed on an old Remington, the letters faint and uneven. A single drop of what looked like wax had dried over the word sunset. I thought it was a joke, a ghost story left for new tenants. But when I texted my friend Dana, she sent back, "Dude, that's freaky. Don't ignore creepy landlords. Asterisk." By midnight I'd half unpacked. I left the paper on the counter and poured myself a drink. Outside, Echo Park buzzed, sirens, laughter, the low hum of traffic. Normal life. I told myself I'd read the rules again later. Then came the flicker. The overhead lights dimmed and pulsed twice, slow like breathing. I froze, remembering Rule 8. I whispered my name, Evan Carter, and the lights steadied. Just a power surge, I thought. Coincidence? But my reflection in the cracked hallway mirror didn't move when I did. I turned sharply. The mirror showed the kitchen behind me, same boxes, same window, but in the reflection, someone was standing by it. A woman, faint as smoke, wearing a red dress that rippled as if in wind. I blinked, and she was gone. I told myself exhaustion explains everything. I hadn't eaten since morning. I was running on caffeine and hope. But the rose smell was stronger now, thick enough to sting. I opened the window for air. Down on the street, the city looked distant, unreal, cars sliding like toys, the water of the reservoir reflecting gold. I almost didn't notice the figure standing across the street, directly beneath the street lamp. A woman. Red dress. Still as a photograph. When I looked again, she was gone. I checked the hallway. Empty. Checked the locks. Secure. I covered the mirror with a towel before bed, not because I believed the rule, but because I wanted to sleep without seeing my own reflection staring back wrong. At 2:47 a.m., my phone alarm went off. I'd set it earlier without realizing. My hand moved automatically to the window latch. Rule 2. Open at 3 o'clock, close at 3:17. I did it. Just to see what would happen. Cold air slipped in, smelling faintly of eucalyptus and something else, salt, maybe, from the reservoir. I watched the digital clock on my phone count the minutes. 3:09, 3:13, 3:17. Nothing happened. Then, from behind me, the faintest sound, 3 slow knocks. I turned, heart in my throat. The knocks came again, 3 beats, a pause, then silence. I counted. 1, 2, 3. Another set. 4. Another. The fourth stopped halfway through. Rule 3. Wait until the fourth set stops before answering. I didn't move. The air felt dense, like the room was underwater. When the silence settled, I shut the window and crawled into bed. I dreamt of water running backward, of red fabric sinking beneath it. When I woke, sunlight painted the wall. The towel had fallen from the mirror. And in the reflection, behind me, a woman in a red dress was standing at the kitchen window, looking out at the city, her face turned slightly toward mine, just enough to smile. She vanished when I turned around. That's when I finally understood Miguel's warning. The building likes structure. It also likes company. The 13th Rule Part 2. October 8, 2024. A week in Loft 313 and the roses hadn't stopped burning. The scent lived in the walls. I scrubbed the kitchen twice, doused the place in lemon cleaner, even burned sage, something my ex swore by. Nothing helped. Miguel's number sat in my phone, unanswered. I'd called twice. Straight to voicemail. The woman in red hadn't appeared again, not directly. But I felt her, the way you feel someone watching from a dark room. Reflections twitched when I wasn't looking. The mirror in the hallway rippled when I passed it, like a thin film of water. I told myself it was vibration from the nearby streetcar, but that didn't explain why it sometimes whispered my name. Evan. Always from the mirror. Always at night. By the 5th day, I stopped sleeping with the lights off. That Friday, I invited my coworker Nick over to prove to myself that I wasn't losing it. He was a back-end engineer, sarcastic, unflappable, the kind of guy who thinks horror movies are comedy. Nice place, he said, stepping inside. Retro church aesthetic. Creepy as hell. He spotted the yellowed page on my counter. What's this, commandments? Rules, I said. The landlord's idea of humor. Nick read a few aloud, laughing until he reached number 10. If you smell roses after midnight, do not move. He looked up. What the hell, man? That's serial killer energy. I know. You actually followed any of these? Maybe. He grinned. You need a girlfriend. By 11, we'd finished a 6-pack and most of a pizza. Nick was mid-story about his ex when the lights dimmed. Once. Twice. Then held steady. He laughed. Power grid's drunk. But I heard it, a soft breath from the hallway. A shift in air. Did you hear that? I asked. Nick frowned. Hear what? The mirror at the end of the hall gleamed brighter than it should. Like it was lit from within. My reflection stood still. But there was someone else beside it. A woman. Pale. Red dress. Nick followed my stare. Dude? He couldn't see her. I realized it when he said, You're white as a ghost. I blinked, and she was gone. Nick stayed another hour, partly out of curiosity, mostly because I asked him to. When he finally left, he said, Man, seriously, get out of this place. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the clock tick toward 3 a.m. My phone alarm buzzed, and I moved to the window like I'd been trained. The latch turned smoothly. Cold air slid in. The city was silent. Too silent. No cars, no wind, no hum. The world felt paused. Then a whisper behind me. Why can you see me? I turned. Lena, though I didn't know her name yet, stood by the counter. The same woman from the reflection. Same red dress, but soaked, dripping water onto the floor. I couldn't speak. Her voice was distant, hollow, like it traveled through an empty tunnel. They can't see me. Only you. What are you? I asked. her head tilted. The last one who asked that never left. The clock on my phone hit 3:17. She vanished, leaving only puddles that faded into steam. I spent the rest of the night staring at the spot where she'd stood. The next morning, I went straight to the building office. Miguel wasn't there. His desk was bare except for a single photo, black and white, dated 1962. It showed the same building, smaller, newly restored. And in the photo's window, barely visible, a woman in a red dress. The file cabinet behind his desk was locked. A single drawer label read, Tenants 313. I left before someone could ask what I was doing. That afternoon, I texted the number listed under Miguel's contact again. Asterisk I need to talk. Urgent, asterisk. No response. 10 minutes later, a message came from an unknown number. Asterisk follow the rules. Do not skip the window tonight, asterisk. I replied instantly, Who is this? The typing indicator blinked once, then stopped. That night the roses came early, thick, cloying, suffocating. The walls seemed to pulse with it. I checked the clock. 2:47 a.m. My alarm hadn't gone off yet. Then the lights died. Pitch black. Something moved in the hallway. I felt it more than saw it, a disturbance in the air, cold and deliberate. I whispered my name, remembering Rule 8. Evan Carter. Evan Carter. The lights came back on. Every mirror in the apartment was uncovered. I hadn't touched them. In the hallway mirror, Lena stood inside the reflection, pressing her hands against the glass. Her mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear. The mirror fogged over. Letters appeared in the condensation, help me remember. I took a step forward. My reflection didn't move. Remember what? I whispered. The glass rippled. Her eyes met mine. For a moment I saw through her, to a different apartment. The same layout, but older. Different furniture. Different lighting. The bathroom tile was pink instead of white. It wasn't my reflection. It was another time. I stumbled backward, hard hammering. The towel I'd used to cover the bathroom mirror was gone. The smell of roses filled the air so thick it burned my eyes. Then my phone buzzed again. She's not haunting you, the message read. She's warning you. The sender's name, Lena Morell. And beneath it, a file attachment, a photo of my own apartment, taken from above, timestamped 3:00 a.m. tomorrow. I hadn't taken it yet. The 13th Rule Part 3. October 15th, 2024. The photo Lena sent haunted me more than her reflection ever could. It showed my apartment from above, like a drone shot, though there was no way to take one indoors. 3 a.m. tomorrow, the timestamp said. In the picture, I was standing by the open window, looking up, my face tilted toward the lens. Behind me, the woman in the red dress. I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the image until dawn. When sunlight finally cut through the window, I noticed something new, writing, faintly visible on the wall behind my reflection. A pattern of black marks that looked like letters burned into plaster, Mendoza Chapel, 1738. By noon I was at the Los Angeles Mission Museum downtown, a restored section of the original Spanish settlement. The air smelled of candle wax and limestone. A volunteer in a gray cardigan approached, her name tag reading Sister Eloise. Her face was kind but sharp, like she already knew why I was there. "You've come from the building on Douglas Street," she said before I even spoke. I froze. "How did you?" "Everyone does, eventually." She nodded toward a hallway lined with old paintings. "Come." We walked past oil portraits of priests, maps of early California, handwritten journals displayed under glass. Eloise stopped at a locked cabinet, opened it with a tiny brass key, and drew out a leather-bound book the color of dried blood. "Fray Diego Mendoza," she said. "He founded the mission on that site in 1737. Built a chapel where your apartment now stands." The pages were filled with spidery handwriting. Latin. Water-stained. But one illustration caught my eye, an oval basin, filled with dark liquid and flowers. Roses. Beneath it, English translation scrawled in the margins, * ritual of division. To separate the soul from the body so that sin may be witnessed, purified, and returned. *. Eloise looked at me. It wasn't baptism. It was experimentation. He believed the soul could be split, half to live, half to observe. Eternal penance. My stomach turned. And that ritual happened where? She tapped the diagram. Exactly where your bathtub sits today. I felt dizzy. So what happened to him? The church excommunicated Mendoza after 12 of his subjects died during cleansing. They buried the records, demolished the chapel, and built housing for missionaries on the same land. But whatever he created never left. It waits for someone to continue the ritual. I showed her the picture on my phone, the one Lena sent. Her eyes widened. You opened the window, didn't you? I nodded slowly. At 3 a.m. Then it's begun again. Before I could ask what she meant, the lights flickered. The museum went silent, too silent. My reflection in the display glass stared back, but Eloise's was gone. When she spoke again, her voice was deeper, echoing. You shouldn't have broken the cycle. I turned, and she wasn't there. Just her cardigan on the floor. The reflection in the glass smiled. You remember me. Lena's voice. But her reflection wasn't Lena, it was me. My own face, grinning from behind the glass. The lights snapped back. The museum returned to normal. The cardigan was gone. I ran out before anyone could stop me. Back at the apartment, the smell of roses hit like a wall. Thick, chemical, almost metallic. My phone buzzed again. Another text, from Miguel this time. Do not go in the bathroom. I went straight to it. The mirror above the sink was uncovered, fogging over on its own. The tub was full, water black as oil, rippling though nothing touched it. On the surface floated rose petals, scorched around the edges. Something shimmered beneath them, moving. Lena? The reflection answered, but not in her voice. Witness. I stumbled back. My reflection didn't follow. It leaned forward, whispering words I couldn't hear. The room darkened until only the mirror glowed. The surface shifted, showing not me, but a woman sinking underwater, red dress blooming around her like smoke. Then the image changed. Fray Mendoza himself kneeling beside the same tub, chanting in Latin, pressing a woman's head beneath the surface. Roses floated as she struggled. The reflection flickered again, to a man in 1962 doing the same, wearing a suit and tie. Then 1994. 2008. Each decade, a different person, same ritual, same bathtub. Then I saw myself. My hands on the edge of the tub, forcing someone under. The reflection showed her face. Lena's. No, I whispered. That's not me. The reflection smiled. The bathroom door slammed behind me. The mirror cracked from corner to corner. The tub began to drain, but instead of water, smoke rose, thick, gray, filling the room. A voice came from the steam. Miguel's. You were never supposed to see that. It's too early. He was standing in the doorway, pale, shaking. I told you to follow the rules. They're boundaries, not protection. What are you talking about? I shouted. What is this place? He pointed to the tub. It's a wound. And you just reopened it. The smoke cleared enough to reveal the bottom of the tub. There was no drain, just a hole, descending into darkness. A whisper rose from it, not in any language I knew, but my name was buried inside it. Evan. Who's down there? I demanded. Miguel looked terrified. Everyone. Every tenant. Every soul Mendoza divided. They're all part of it now. The floorboards rattled. The mirror's shards vibrated, aligning themselves on the wall into new words. April 1st, 2027. Miguel stepped closer. That's your date. What happens then? You merge. He tried to leave, but the hallway light flickered 3 times, then stayed dark. From somewhere deep inside the walls came the sound of knocking. 3 sets. Pause. Then another. It stopped halfway through the fourth. Miguel's face drained of color. Too late. The kitchen door swung open on its own. The air pressure shifted. The rose scent turned to rot. A woman's voice echoed from every direction, Lena's, but layered, multiplied, distorted. You wanted to know the truth. Now you'll remember it. The world folded. For a second, I wasn't in the loft. I stood in the chapel, 1738. Mendoza knelt before me, whispering prayers as hands held me underwater. Roses, thick with ash, floated around my face. I wasn't Evan anymore. I wasn't anyone. Just an echo trapped in liquid and light. Then I was back, in my apartment, gasping for air. The tub was empty. Miguel was gone. Only his clipboard remained on the floor, papers scattered. One page caught my eye. Tenant list. Each name crossed out, except mine. The column beside it read, duration, 875 days. Below, a final note in red ink, asterisk subject visible during daylight. Phase 2 begins, asterisk. I grabbed the clipboard, ran to the door, and yanked it open. The hallway was gone. In its place stretched a long corridor lined with mirrors, floor to ceiling, endless. Every reflection was me, but each slightly different. Older. Younger. Wounded. Smiling. And behind every version of me stood a woman in red. They spoke in one voice. Do you see us now? I backed away, but the floor dissolved beneath my feet. I fell, not into darkness, but into water. Cold, black, bottomless. Shapes swirled around me, faces flickering through the depths. Lena, Miguel, strangers I'd never met. When I surfaced, I was standing back in my kitchen, dripping wet. My phone lay on the counter, buzzing with a new message. From unknown. Do not open the window tonight. The time, 2:59 a.m. A single rose petal fell from the ceiling and landed on the screen. It was burning. The 13th Rule Part 4. October 21st, 2024. I didn't open the window that night. I watched the clock tick past 3 a.m. and held my breath as the numbers turned to 3:17. Nothing happened. The world stayed silent. But the air grew heavy, and the smell of roses rotted into something metallic, like blood warmed by electricity. When I woke, it wasn't morning. The sky outside was red, frozen at dusk. Traffic stood motionless. A bird hung mid-flight outside the window, wings suspended like a photograph. Time had stopped, but I hadn't. The loft was alive. The floorboards shifted beneath me as if the wood was breathing. The walls pulsed with a low heartbeat. Mirrors whispered in overlapping voices, my own, but not quite. Evan Carter, they murmured. Subject awake. Cycle destabilized. I stumbled into the hallway, clutching Miguel's clipboard. Every surface reflected movement except the one I stood in. Shadows rippled ahead like silhouettes projected from behind glass. Lena? I called. If you're here, help me. She answered from everywhere at once. You weren't supposed to resist. Her voice wasn't human anymore. It carried the weight of dozens layered together, a choir of lost tenants speaking through one throat. I ran. The corridor stretched farther than it should, folding back into itself. Doors led to the same room I'd left seconds before. I opened one and stepped into a version of my apartment where everything was reversed. Left became right. The clock ran backward, and my reflection smiled before I did. On the table lay a notebook I'd never owned. The first page was dated November 3rd, 2026, handwritten in my own scrawl. Day 761. She says I'm almost ready. The rules are thinning. I think I was her once. The next page was torn out, leaving only faint indentations of words written over and over. Don't let it reset. The walls began to hum. Light bled through the cracks between planks, searing white. I dropped the notebook and covered my ears. When the hum stopped, someone was standing in front of me. Me. But older. Hair longer, eyes hollow. Wearing the same clothes but soaked through, dripping black water. He looked at me with pity. You shouldn't have skipped the window, he said softly. That was the anchor. What are you? He smiled, a reflection come to life. The one who didn't listen. Before I could move, he reached out and pressed his hand against my chest. The air exploded. I saw flashes, memories not mine but familiar, Lena running through the chapel, water rushing into her lungs, Miguel whispering prayers, Fray Mendoza watching from behind a veil of centuries. And beneath it all, my own face repeated through time, performing the same act over and over. Each tenant. Each life. Each drowning. When I opened my eyes, the older me was gone, but water pulled at my feet. The notebook floated open to a new page that hadn't been there before. It read, "You are next." Something inside the walls shifted. The ceiling bowed. The sound of rushing water filled the air, even though the pipes had long been dry. The loft trembled, the windows flickering between day and night like a broken projector. I ran toward the door, but it wasn't there anymore, just a solid wall of brick where it used to be. I pounded on it until my knuckles bled. From behind me came the sound of high heels on wood. Slow. Precise. Lena stood in the doorway to the bathroom. Her red dress was darker now, heavy with water. Her skin was cracked like porcelain. When she spoke, her mouth barely moved. "The ritual doesn't end," she said. "It repeats until someone finishes it." "I'm not him," I shouted. "I didn't drown you." Her eyes glowed faintly gold. "You did. You always do. Every 875 days. She stepped forward. Each footfall left a small bloom of water on the floorboards. "He thought dividing the soul would free us from sin. Instead, he trapped us here, each cycle feeding the one before." "Then why me?" I whispered. "Because you're me," she said simply. "And I'm you." The mirrors along the wall shattered outward, glass raining like silver rain. Through the broken frames, I saw scenes playing in fragments, Lena unpacking boxes, Miguel handing her the same list of rules, her whispering her name when the lights flickered. Then me, repeating every action. Perfect symmetry. Reality folded in on itself. The sound of water turned to a roar. The floor split open, revealing a black chasm swirling beneath the apartment. In it faces churned, every tenant that had ever lived here, their mouths open in a silent scream. I felt myself being pulled toward it. My body leaned forward without permission. My feet dragged across the floor. Lena reached out a hand. "If you fall, the loop resets. If you merge, it ends." "What does that mean?" She smiled sadly. "It means one of us has to die without coming back." The wind from the chasm sucked the air from my lungs. I grabbed her arm, cold and solid. She pulled me toward her, and for an instant our reflections aligned perfectly, same posture, same heartbeat. The world slowed. I was standing in her timeline now. 2021. Her apartment, same loft but brighter, filled with plants and light. Miguel was at the door handing her the rules for the first time. She looked happy then. Alive. I tried to speak but no sound came. My voice belonged to someone else. The scene rewound and played again, her unpacking boxes, hearing knocks, covering mirrors. Faster and faster, until every version of her blurred into one endless loop of fear. Then water filled the room again. The bathtub overflowed, drowning everything. She screamed as invisible hands forced her under. I tried to pull her free, but the hands were mine. My own reflection stared back through the water, calm and merciless. When the vision snapped, I was back in the present, gasping, soaked, the apartment shaking like it would tear itself apart. Lena lay on the floor, eyes open but lifeless. I crawled to her, shaking her shoulders. She blinked once. "You're ready now." The walls peeled away. Behind them was not structure, but movement, a vast, pulsing mass like the inside of a living lung. It beat with the rhythm of a heart too large to belong to anything human. Voices whispered from it, Miguel, Eloise, the priest, and a dozen others. "Merge," they chanted. "Merge and remember." The rose scent became unbearable. My vision blurred. I crawled toward the open window, desperate for air. Outside, the city was gone. Only the chapel remained, its stone walls rising from the void. The clock tower struck once, loud, metallic, eternal. Lena's voice came from behind me, right at my ear. April 1st, 2027. That's when you stop pretending. I turned. She was gone. Only the mirror on the far wall remained intact. My reflection grinned, raising its hand in a mock salute. See you soon, it said. Then the glass exploded, pulling me through. I fell, not into darkness, but into blinding light. Every second of every life flashed past at once. Lena drowning, Miguel praying, Eloise whispering warnings, Mendoza kneeling in blood. And at the center of it all, me, standing at the window at 3 a.m., opening it again and again. The wind screamed. The world inverted. When it stopped, I was standing in my apartment once more. Everything was pristine. The smell was gone. Morning sunlight streamed through clean windows. The mirror was whole again. A soft knock came from the door. I opened it. Miguel stood there, smiling, holding a clipboard. "Welcome to Loft 313, Mr. Carter," he said. "Please read the rules carefully." Behind him, the clock read October 1st, 2024. The beginning. But this time, I remembered everything. The 13th Rule Part 5. April 1st, 2027. It had all come full circle. The date burned on the wall like a wound that refused to heal. April 1st, 2027, written in the faint glow of dawn seeping through the cracked blinds. My body felt hollow, as if I had been emptied out and filled with static. The city outside moved normally now, cars rolling, sirens crying, people shouting. But the air inside the loft was wrong. The silence wasn't absence, it was anticipation. I stood by the window, the 13th Rule crumpled in my hand, edges damp from sweat. I'd read it so many times the letters had nearly worn away. The same old list, the same impossible laws. My reflection in the glass smiled faintly back at me, as though it knew what came next. I didn't remember falling asleep, but I remembered waking here before. Every cycle began the same way. Every one ended with the same mistake. But this time, I remembered all of it. The first knock came at 3 a.m. sharp. 3 steady taps. A pause. Another set. It stopped halfway through the fourth. The pattern never changed. The sound didn't come from the door or the walls, it came from inside me, echoing in my ribs. I whispered, "I'm not doing it again." The mirror on the wall trembled, then answered with my own voice. "You already are." My reflection blinked a fraction too late. Its mouth kept moving after mine stopped. "The ritual isn't punishment, Evan. It's restoration." I turned away. "No. It's imprisonment." The reflection laughed softly. "Isn't that the same thing?" The air rippled. The world blinked. The loft warped into the chapel again, stone walls, rose petals floating through the air, light bleeding from unseen candles. The scent of salt water and smoke filled my lungs. I was standing where Mendoza once knelt, the basin of water before me. But this time, I wasn't alone. Lena stood opposite me. Her red dress shimmered like wet silk, her hair floating slightly as though submerged in invisible water. Her eyes no longer glowed, they were calm, human, almost sad. "It's time," she said. I shook my head. "No more loops. No more rituals." She stepped forward, bare feet leaving crimson prints on the stone. "You've misunderstood from the start. It was never about sin or redemption. It was about memory. The building remembers because we don't." "Then why me?" "Because you were the first." The words froze in the air. "That's impossible." She reached out and touched my forehead. A flood of images hit me, Fray Mendoza kneeling in prayer, a young man helping him prepare the basin, the same face I saw in mirrors. My own. Different century. Different name. Diego's apprentice. The one who volunteered for the ritual to bear the memory of the divided. It wasn't a haunting. It was a record. I stumbled back, choking on realization. All of this, every tenant, every cycle, it's me. Lena nodded. You left pieces of yourself here. Each time someone new arrived, they carried one piece until the next came. I was you. You were me. We've been trading the same consciousness for centuries. The walls shook, shedding fragments of stone that floated upward like ash. The water in the basin began to rise, spiraling into the air. Lena's voice trembled. If you merge with it, you'll remember everything. But you'll stop being you. And if I don't? She smiled faintly. Then someone else will move in. The building will start again. And you'll forget all this by tomorrow morning. I looked at the water, now swirling like a cyclone of light. The faces of every tenant shimmered inside, Miguel, Eloise, the nameless dozens. All watching. Waiting. My own reflection multiplied in the current, each version mouthing the same words. Finish it. The sound of the city faded until only the heartbeat of the loft remained. I felt the floor pulse beneath me, synchronizing with my chest. I was part of it already. There was no escape, only direction. I took a step toward the basin. Lena's hand caught my wrist. You can still leave, she said, voice breaking. You can still pretend it's just a story. I met her eyes. I've been pretending for 300 years. Her grip loosened. Then remember us. I placed my palm on the surface of the water. Instantly, everything stopped. Light poured through me, white and endless. I saw the entire cycle unfolding at once. The construction of the chapel, the burning of the roses, the hammering of nails, the endless list of rules forming like scripture across walls. Mendoza's chant echoed through the centuries, reshaping language until it became the whispers in the mirrors. Asterisk ego divido. Ego unio. Asterisk. I divide. I unite. The souls of the dead moved through me like wind through glass. I saw Lena's life flash forward, her laughter, her fear, her final breath beneath the water. I saw Miguel decades earlier, writing the rules by hand after watching the walls bleed. I saw myself creating each rule to hold the chaos back, one by one, until the 13th, the final tether between worlds. The basin's light faded. The chapel dissolved into vapor. The loft returned, still and silent. Lena knelt on the floor, trembling. Did it work? I opened my mouth, but my voice wasn't mine anymore. It was both of ours, layered, unified. I remember. She smiled faintly, tears streaking her cheeks. Then it's over. The mirror behind her cracked. The reflection spoke with our shared voice. It's never over. Memory isn't linear. It loops. Lena looked up, terrified. What does that mean? I stepped toward her. The air shimmered like heat. It means I'm not the only one who remembers now. Her body stiffened. The glow around us pulsed, drawing her reflection into mine. The loft's walls began to shift again, folding inward, swallowing light. She reached for me one last time, but her hand passed through. Our images merged perfectly in the mirror, two halves aligning into one. And then she was gone. The air stilled. The building sighed, wood relaxing, glass cooling. The rose scent faded until only dust remained. Outside, dawn broke properly for the first time in years. The clock ticked. Time moved again. I looked down at my hands. They were neither mine nor hers. Something in between. Balanced. Whole. The phone on the counter buzzed. New message. Unknown number. Welcome home. Another followed a second later. The next tenant arrives tonight. I stared at the mirror. My reflection smiled, not maliciously, but knowingly. The doorbell rang. Slowly, I crossed the room and opened the door. A young woman stood there, suitcase in hand. Her eyes were bright, curious, full of hope. She smiled nervously. Hi, she said. I'm looking for Mr. Carter. I'm here to see the apartment. I felt the list of rules in my pocket before I even realized I was holding it. The paper felt warm. Of course, I said, stepping aside. Welcome to Loft 313. She entered, glancing around. It's beautiful, she murmured. Yes, I said softly. It remembers. I handed her the yellowed paper. She unfolded it, frowning slightly. 13 rules? She asked. What happens if I break them? The air around us held its breath. I smiled. You don't want to find out. She laughed, just as I once did. And somewhere, deep within the walls, the faint scent of burning roses returned. The building exhaled. And the cycle began again.